My name is Tom Neal, and I'm the head hornet at Castalian Springs, and I'm going to bring you some information that you haven't heard. I'm going to shock you, Mr. White. Hoover will not produce one single job, and I'm going to prove it to you. I have a petition here for 962 names. I am a graduate of Tennessee Tech, finest school in Tennessee. I have a graduate degree from the University of Tennessee Industrial Management, Industrial Engineering. I went to Pennsylvania some years ago. I served on the board of Altoona Enterprises, which is an industrial development organization up there, for 6 years. Not bragging, but when I left, they dedicated the yearbook to me, so I know something about industrial development. I also know something about economics. A rock is a rock is a rock. I went to Pennsylvania. I took over a company that had 15 million in sales, and it went to $67 million in sales, and we did it by innovating new products. A rock is a rock is a rock. You can dig it out, smash it up, crush it, it's still a rock. So where does you can't build a rock. What are you going to do with it? You got to sell it to somebody. Who are you going to sell it to? You're going to sell it to the state of Tennessee, or you're going to have some big project. I have here the 3-year plan for the state of Tennessee for 2012, 13, and 14, and there's 2 piddling little jobs for Sumner County. On the County Highway Commission, our budget is essentially the same as last year. It'll be less next year. No jobs there. How about 109 Bridge? That contract has already been let. No jobs there. There are no jobs in state. I've spoken to the economic development director of Gallatin, nothing in sight. I've spoken to the economic developer of this region of Tennessee, nothing in sight. Who's going to create the jobs? The pie is this small. You can't make a bigger pie. You got to have customers. You have no customers. You claim you're going to create 135 jobs. You won't create one job. Not one. You got to have a demand. You have no demand. You can't create a job with no demand. Customers have to be served. Even if you did, we'd just be swapping jobs. For every job you hired, the other company, whoever they are, would lose a job. For every truck driver you hired, they would lose a job. There would be 0 net gain for the Sumner County. How about quarrying rocks? Quarrying rocks? Mineral service tax, you know what that is? You know how much the mineral service tax has gone down in the last 3 years? It went from $267,000 to $152,000, and you're going to come here and make a profit when it's going down and down and down? I don't understand it. You're not going to create a job. I close with the thoughts of Winston Churchill on those dark days. And you know what I'm going to say, Tom. On those dark days in 1941, October, before the United States entered the war, he made his talk to a Harrow school, and he said, "We will never, 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 never give up. God bless America, and God bless Sumner County." Thank you.
I'm Tom Patton. I am a registered engineer in Tennessee for about 40 years, but I'm not here in that capacity exactly. What I want to do is tell you several things about my experience with rock quarries. I grew up in a house that was well over 100 years old when Daddy bought it. It was built by Andrew Jackson's adopted grandson. Everything went fine until Franklin Limestone opened a quarry on Cumberland River, there on Rabbit Lane, for the purpose of providing the rock for Old Hickory Dam. Within that time frame, that house began to show cracks and destruction that it hadn't shown for 100 years. Chimneys began to fall, cracks opened up, and things on shelves fell in the floor. The second experience was I had an engineering and laboratory office at the intersection of Lebanon Road and Central Pike. It's about 1.5 miles from the Hermitage Quarry, as well as I can figure. During that tenure, they blasted generally in the range between 2 and 4:30. We did not conduct any sensitive laboratory operations in that time frame. You could not. I had a visitor from Orange County, California that sat in my office. We were having a business conversation. They pulled a shot. He looked like a deer in the headlights at night as he looked at me and says, "I didn't know you had earthquakes." I said, "No, Jonesy, it's just the quarry." So what I'm telling you is the impact of these operations is not measured in feet. It is measured in miles. I live 3.5 miles from this quarry, and I am very concerned. And I appeal to this board to deny this request for the protection of everyone in Castalian Springs, because we are indeed at risk. From an economic standpoint, you've had much information today, but I want to mention one. We all know about the golden goose. The goose has been wandering around Castalian Springs for this last several years. It has made a nest at the end of Harsh Lane. It is called Haversham. Their potential investment, as I figured, is $150 million or more, 10 times greater than what we're talking here tonight. I've roughly calculated that would indicate to me a property tax income of somewhere close to $750,000 a year, and a sales tax income from the inhabitants thereof of approximately $1.4 million. I wish that you would consider these facts, because I think we don't want to step on the egg, nor do we want to kill the goose. Thank you.
Before this hearing was ever began, we sat down with the lawyers on both sides and worked out a timeline, because otherwise we could be here all night. No, listen, public meeting means the public has the right to attend, not necessarily that the public has a right to speak. We gave the citizens we gave each side 45 minutes, and then we gave the citizens an additional 30 minutes to speak. You've already used up 15 minutes of that time, plus an additional 30 minutes of other people. We're going to give 15 more minutes of time. So anyone that's going to speak, remember, you're walking on other people's time. There's still 11 people signed up to speak. Some of these people, I believe, are not necessarily wanting to speak. So think about that. This committee has to deliberate, and they have to actively deliberate on the information provided to them. So if you're saying something that's already been said, you're just cutting into their deliberation time and ruining their ability to make an informed decision.
Okay, yes, my name is Christy Henry, and I live at 380 Cornhill Road. Everyone's talked about how this is very bad. This is very bad. My son is 11 years old. He suffers from cystic fibrosis and acute asthma. We moved out to Castalian Springs about 3 years ago. When he was 2 months old, he was diagnosed with this disease, and he was in the hospital 3 to 4 times a year, a month to 2 weeks at a time. Now that we've moved out to Castalian Springs, he goes once, maybe twice a year. You know, his health is all based on living out there. You know, he breathes the clean air. He gets to go outside and play. If they build this rock quarry, there's no going outside for my son. He'll have to wear a mask. I can't move. I'm a single mom. I stay home with my kids to keep him healthy, to keep him here. If this quarry is there, it will kill my son. And I am not leaving my home, and I refuse for this quarry to be there. Thank you.
My name is Susan Hamblin Gatus. I lived in Donaldson. My parents owned a farm that was adjacent to the Hoover Quarry. There is no way to describe what went through that whole community with the rock quarry. Our house, the foundation had cracks you could put your hand in, the bricks were crumbling, the walls were crumbling, the well was completely knocked out. That was our source of water. We had indoor plumbing, but from the time Hoover started blasting, we had no water. Our water was carried in. The dust was so bad that my father had emphysema and could not go out of the house under the shade in the summertime. Now, all of the neighbors and my parents, who are all deceased now, I guess I'm the last one that can testify to this, went to court numerous times to stop the blasting, the strong blast, to stop the dust. Hoover would stop for a day or a week, then he would throw boulders through the barns, our barns, the neighbors' barns. The courts never stopped Hoover. They did listen to him, they did try to control him, but they did not. Now, I have driven from Nolensville, and I have sat out here tonight, and I came through traffic to tell you that how bad the situation is, and the farmland, the crops, these were all farmers. And this was in the 50s, early 50s, middle 50s, later 50s, that they fought this for years. Finally, the airport took over the property and that ended it. But Hoover cannot fix two things. He cannot repair a well, he cannot replace your well, and he cannot replace your peace of mind you have before a quarry invades your property. Thank you.
This is a reading from an unpublished family history written by Sam Griffin.
State your name.
My name is Philip Griffin. I shall refer to Papa frequently in this write-up, but about this time he became more feeble. I, being the only member of the family at home, except Mama, shall never forget him. While I don't remember the exact date of his passing in March 1909, I do remember very vividly being in the room at the time it happened. He had not been sick, as always, as long as I knew him. When he was asked how he was feeling, he would say, "Just tolerable," or "moderate." On this particular morning, about 9 o'clock, after he had finished reading his Bible, he lay down on the couch in the living room. No one thought that he was very sick, but in the very few minutes he passed on so quietly that it seemed he had just fallen asleep. Our Mama lost a good husband, and we, his children, a good father, but the Lord received a good and faithful servant. Somehow, I felt that Jesus was in the room that morning, and I heard him say, "I have come to take you home. Follow me." I called Mama, Frank, and Mary, who lived next door. Somehow, I could not cry. I went to our bench on the creek bank where we frequently sat and talked, and in a minute, old Bailey, my dog, climbed up, put his head against my face, and seemed to say I loved him too. He was laid to rest by his son Walter in the orchard near the house. That cemetery overlooks the entire piece of property. Would you like for this to be your final resting place?